What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to be talking about something that could end up being one of the better investments for the next decade. And this asset is also likely the reason why all the different countries around the world are starting to talk about banning crypto and more so crypto mining. So let's start off with asking, what does the global economy run on? And we have the answer right here. The global economy is completely dependent on energy. Let's take a look at a chart of energy and see how it's been performing as of late. We also just did a technical analysis video on the same chart explaining these lines we have drawn. So if you are interested in that, that should be posted before this video comes out. So go ahead and look for that if you're interested. But you can see, since our sell-off in April of 2020, or March of 2020, we put in a bottom and we have more than doubled in price. This actually looks like it does have pretty strong momentum going higher also, so I would not be surprised to see this breakout. All right, so now that we know how important energy is, a better question than what does the global economy run on would be, what does energy run on? And that takes us to the next web page. Runs on water. And it just so happens, well, not all of it, but the majority of the energy that we produce today requires a lot of water. And that's one of the bigger problems that we're facing as a society, a global society. As you can see from this photo, SpongeBob is very dehydrated. And that is a good resemblance of the world at the moment, because there seems to be a water shortage that has been popping up all over the world. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And we will also be talking about how it relates to all the new talk of Bitcoin regulations for proof of work mining. So you can see here, energy production is the second largest consumer of freshwater resources in the world. I just wanted to take a quick second to come down here because there is some information that relates to one of the videos we posted a couple days ago. It was the video talking about the top 3 altcoins that I think have the most realistic chance at doing a 10 or 100 or maybe even 1,000x over the next 5 years. And the best ones that I think would be to be accumulating in a bear market. So I just wanted to, for whoever watched that, just provide a little bit more information regarding this. So you can see that agriculture is the top consumer of water, or of fresh water resources in the world. And it consumes about 70% of the global fresh water withdrawals. And a large percentage of this water is wasted due to inefficient irrigation techniques. So this is agriculture. You can also see down here almonds and walnuts. They require about 1,000 to 2,000 gallons of water to produce a pound of food. And with meat, you can see that it's about 2,000 gallons per pound. Pork and chicken are 728 and 293 respectively. You can see that there's a lot of water that's being involved in these 3, and you can see that a large portion of water is wasted. So that comes back to that project we were talking about called Demetra, and they are focused on agriculture technology. And this is probably something that they're going to be addressing with their technology going forward. So just thought I would mention that before we move on. All right, so here we're going to take a look at water consumption from coal power plants. And you can see that the number of gallons drawn per day for nuclear and coal power plants is 200 billion gallons, and that's per day. So there is a lot of water going into producing the energy that we use. All right, so from this webpage, you can see that Bitcoin devours more electricity than Switzerland, which makes it sound like quite a bit. And realistically, it does consume a lot of energy, but nothing compared to the United States or China. And I believe, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, it says right here that about 0.5% of all electricity consumption worldwide is due to Bitcoin mining. So in the big picture, it's really not all that much, but then again, it really is for something like this. I mean, Bitcoin's definitely worth it. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But just put yourself in the position of a politician, you know, say your choice is to allow Bitcoin mining or starve your citizens from water and ration water. And a lot of these politicians don't really understand Bitcoin, and they probably don't understand the economy and what's going on at the moment, as is suggested from some of their policies that they've been implementing over the last couple of years. But I think the problem is that there's a global shortage of water that is getting more and more serious as time goes on. And a lot of these politicians don't really have a good answer to address it, because it's not like they have a money printer or a water printer that they can just go out and print more water. You know, it takes a long time to actually be able to gather fresh water. All right, so we can see here, China's water problems are even worse than you think. And I just highlighted a couple key points throughout here that we can go over real quick. More emphasis should be placed on water demand management. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Instead of trying to invest in new technologies to produce more water, they're trying to manage the water better. I think that's part of what plays into these decisions to consider shutting down Bitcoin mining. And we will look at a consensus model chart over here that shows you a rough concept of how the different consensus algorithms draw energy, and it'll explain why they're attacking proof of work rather than proof of stake or any of that. With that, let's continue. China's water shortage crisis is likely to deepen as the country continues to develop. A $81 billion effort to reroute water from the south to the drier north. So you can see that they're already investing into this problem, which shows that it is becoming more of a timely thing, or else they wouldn't be throwing $81 billion at it. So this is something that they are taking serious. And because of that, I think it's something that we should be paying attention to. So prior to the arrival of infusions from the south, Beijing's per capita water volume was just 100 cubic meters, 1.25% of the world's average level. With the water from the south that was being rerouted, that figure will go up to 150 cubic meters per person, which we'll put in context right here. So the UN says a region is considered water stressed when annual water supplies dip below 1,700 cubic meters per person. So you can see we're about 90% off of that. You know, we're nowhere near that. So I don't know if that's what you consider water stressed. I think you'd probably have to come up with a new term for this, because that's a whole different ballgame. So that was China. Now let's look at Russia. So Moscow is under pressure as thousands in Crimea have been rationing water for months due to a Ukrainian water blockade. This isn't a natural thing. As you can see, it's due to a Ukrainian water blockade. And basically what happened was Russia annexed the territory of Crimea, which basically means they took over. And at that point, Ukraine wasn't too happy about it, and they want Russia out still to this day. So their theory was if they create a dam to block the water, that would incentivize Russia to leave, because it puts a lot of political tension as the city doesn't have any water, So, but the point that I think is important to understand about this is that water is becoming a political tool. The shortage is becoming a real thing. A lot of people have been talking about it for at least a decade now. But you can see that these governments are under pressure regarding water. All right, and now we're over in Europe. So you can see this is just an image, the root zone wetness percentile. So basically, the darker you get, the more of a drought you're in, and the scarcer the water is in that area. And you can see the majority of Europe is pretty scarce on water at the moment also. So you got Europe and Asia. So you can see here, in recent years, Central Europe has experienced a series of droughts caused by exceptionally stable weather patterns and high temperature that can both be linked to climate change. If anyone's watched any news in the last 2 years, you'll probably know that this is a pretty big issue for politicians all over the globe. And there's been a lot of investments being made into ways to combat climate change. A lot of these politicians are saying that they're trying to reduce the CO2 emissions and trying to make the world a better place. But in reality, I think a lot of this actually has to do with the water situation that we're in. We're just running out of water, and the climate change is just accelerating this. They had projections that even the United States, by I think it was 2040 or 2050, would be pretty close to running out of water itself. And you can see instances like California. So pretty much the whole North America would be in a water shortage by 2040 or 2050. But now that we're having these climate change problems, that is accelerating that. So if that was the estimation for 2040 or 2050, that could be 2030 instead, or maybe even sooner. So I think that's what a lot of people are nervous about at the moment with climate change. So after 6 years of rainfall deficits, the Czech Republic reported this spring that nearly 80% of its wells were recording mild to extreme droughts. The country's soil moisture in May was at least 30% below normal. Some climatologists called it the country's worst drought in 500 years. And in neighboring Germany, underground water storage has also been depleted in recent years, meaning zero. And then over in Ukraine, the water level in the Desna River reached its lowest point in 140 years of observations, a full 5 meters below normal for springtime. And then down here, Polish climatologists reported one of the worst droughts in 100 years, with agricultural droughts in 11 of 16 provinces. So you can see it's not just a single country that mismanaged resources, This is a legitimate global problem that needs to be addressed. All right, so you can see here, China's most powerful regulators on Friday intensified a crackdown on cryptocurrencies with a blanket ban on all crypto transactions and mining, hitting Bitcoin and other major coins, and pressuring crypto and blockchain-related stocks. And this was from September 24th, so this isn't recent, but I just want to show you that all of the places we just talked about that had some pretty serious water shortages are now starting to talk about banning crypto, and probably more specifically for them, crypto mining, because that's probably the main drain on the energy. So, and because of energy using so much water, the main drain on water also. All right, so let's come over here. So Russian central bank proposes banning crypto mining and trading. And this one's more recent. You can see this came out January 20, 2022. It's been several months where several countries are slowly coming out and considering this as an option. All right, and then this is another one that just came out. You can see January 19th. The European Union urgently needs to ban a form of cryptocurrency mining that is relying heavily on renewable energy and poses a threat to climate change goals, a top regional regulator said Wednesday. The solution is to ban proof of work. So right back to what we were saying. And let's come over here. So this is that chart I was talking about that has several different consensus algorithms. And like I was saying, it is very simple, and basically the only thing that I wanted to point out is that this column right here is energy consumption. You have proof of work, very high, and the only other one that is considered very high is proof of burn. And I can't name you one coin that is a proof of burn, so that's why they're coming after proof of work, is because there's no coins big enough with proof of burn to actually draw any energy. So the problems in their eyes is proof of work when it comes to using too much energy and therefore using too much water. And you can see here, the White House hopes to push Congress to pass a law requiring the U.S. grid to get 80% of its power from emission-free sources by 2030. Requiring utilities to move away from coal and natural gas is a cornerstone of Biden's plan to slash greenhouse gas emissions in half across the U.S. economy in the next decade. Basically, what this article is saying is requiring utilities to move away from coal and natural gas because they use too much water, and we don't have enough water and the world's running out of it. I think that's really what's going on behind the scenes. But I'm putting words in their mouth, so that is my opinion. All right, so coming over here, you can see Dr. Michael Berry, who has spent most of the past decade betting on an environmental crisis that could make water a rare commodity. And that's what I was saying earlier. There's been several people that have been talking about this for quite a while now. And Michael Berry, if you guys have seen the movie The Big Short, was the fund manager from that movie. And one of my favorite quotes from him that I think is also applicable to this situation, we can take a look at right now.
Lawrence, I don't know how to be sarcastic. I don't know how to be funny. I don't know how to work people. I just know how to read numbers.
How big's your short position right now?
Just the 1.3 billion.
And the premiums?
Well, we pay roughly 80 to 90 million each year, which is high, but I was the first to do this trade. Watch, it will pay. I may have been early, but I'm not wrong.
All right, there you have it. I may be early, but I'm not wrong. And, I think he's probably in the same position to say the same thing today, because he's been investing in water for these reasons for about a decade now. And it looks like it's probably going to end up paying off for him pretty well. So that brings us to the next topic, which some of you guys might actually be interested in investing in water because of the upcoming scarcity that we're going to be finding ourselves getting deeper into. This is a list of ETFs that all have water resource companies. And an ETF is equity-based. So these are all going to have stocks rather than actually investing in water as a commodity. So the problem with investing in a stock is it's a company with a balance sheet. Just think about if the price of water goes up, and you need to import water to your factory to produce your energy or whatever. So the price of your water goes up, you're either going to have to accept lower profit margins or pass the price off to consumers, which I think is probably the reason why we've seen energy going up in price so much lately, as we've seen from that chart that we looked at the very beginning of the video. But, if they don't pass it off to their consumers, that's a reduction in profit margin for the company. That's the problem with investing in a stock that works in the industry. is that you inherit more risk that doesn't necessarily come with investing in a commodity. I personally am not a big fan of trading on the futures market. So if I'm ever trying to invest in commodities, I typically try to find an ETN, which an ETF is an exchange traded fund, which has equity based, and an ETN is an exchange traded note, which is commodity based, which is futures. So basically they roll your contracts and do everything for you, and you do pay a little bit in management fees, but realistically it's really not all that much. And you never have to worry about actually receiving a contract. So I think there's a funny story back in 2020. There was a guy who bought a whole bunch of, I think it was oil futures when the market went negative. And when it was time for the oil to be delivered, he had no place to put it because he was just trying to trade for a profit and didn't realize he was actually going to be getting thousands of barrels of oil shipped to him. So that's another reason I like the ETNs, is it just makes life a lot easier. But the problem is there's not a good ETN that I could find for water. You do have the option of trading futures on the California water situation, but you are trading futures rather than owning a ETN, which is basically you're owning the futures anyway, but it's just managed for you. And this is also just California. So you're not really getting a broad exposure to this problem other than just with California. So I think that's a problem with investing in these futures also, because you're narrowing your probabilities considerably just because you have to be correct about California rather than correct about a global water shortage. So this is something that I definitely have on my radar as something that I would like to invest in the future, but I'm not quite too sure as to what strategy I would like to implement to do so. So maybe whenever I figure that out, that could be another video for the future. But for the time being, you do have your California futures and a couple ETFs that focus on water-related companies, if you're interested in looking more into them. And if we can't really find a good way to get into water like we'd like to, you know, playing energy is a derivative of it. So, you know, as long as we're going to be needing coal or nuclear energy going forward, I think that energy could be a way of playing this without directly playing it. So that's something to keep in mind also. But I don't know. I guess that's something I will be thinking about over the upcoming weeks. So maybe see a video on that in the future if you guys are interested. Let me know in the comments. So I guess with that, let's end the video. Like this video to support the channel. Comment to let us know what you think about it. And subscribe to the channel with the bell icon to receive notifications when we post content like this. Alright everyone, as usual, stay one step ahead and have a great day.